keynote speaker. In W.Mitchell's race for Congress, his slogan was, "Oh, yes, he can." Those of us who have watched and listened to him know that he can. In Crested Butte, Colorado, he earned worldwide recognition as the mayor who saved a mountain. Mitchell is the author of It's Not What Happens to You, It's What You Do About It. And he's also a commercial pilot and a whitewater rafter. You could say that he has done it all. This internationally recognized expert on change likes just to be called Mitchell. The public television host has been inducted into the Speakers Hall of Fame and has received the speaking profession's highest award, the Council of Peers Award for Excellence. He shares his powerful message about taking responsibility for change with audiences around the globe. And now there is someone else who has a few things he would like to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 42nd President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton.
And I saw another friend of mine back here who did not speak to you today, but often speaks at these Power Within events. His name is W.Mitchell, and he lives in Santa Barbara. And we've been friends for 25 years. First time we ever met, he was the mayor of the vast metropolis of Crested Butte, Colorado. And I was the youngest governor in America. And I'm going to use his story to get into what I want to talk about. Because America is in a bad fix and the rest of the world's being affected by it. I hope you won't be too affected by it. But the most important thing is not sit around and feel bad about the bad fix. The most important thing is to figure out what are we going to do now. So I'll tell you a story about W. Mitchell. When I met him, he was a mayor. And we were talking one night. I said, "How do you deal with all this?" And he said, "Well, you know, before I was injured, there were 10,000 things I could do with my life. And this injury was pretty tough. But when I really thought about it, it only took away about 1,000 of those things. So I have a choice. I can spend the rest of my life feeling sorry for myself because of the 1,000 things that are gone, or I can spend the rest of my life feeling good about the 9,000 things that are still out there that I can do. I choose the 9,000. That's what the world has to do now."
At 28, W. Mitchell had just made it out of the Marines and landed a good job as a grip man running cable cars through the majestic hills of San Francisco. On his time off, he liked to ride motorcycles. W. Mitchell's life changes in a second when he is badly burnt in a motorcycle accident.
I became a human bonfire.
His recovery pushes the limits of what any human being can bear.
I can't describe how painful it was.
When Mitchell is tested again by a terrifying plane crash, he discovers an inner strength he never knew he possessed.
Would I trade what I've learned? Not in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, W. Mitchell.
Anyone can count the seeds in an apple. And no one can count the apples in a seed. Normally, when I speak to adults, I have a different opening. I ask people a question about adversity and difficulty, and I save this one for kids. I save this one for students. But then, after talking to Bob, he let me call him Bob. First he made me call him Mr. President. Then doctor, professor, but finally let me call him Bob. after talking to Bob, I realized I've probably never talked to a bigger group of students. A bigger group of seed planters. Of people who don't know how many apples are in a seed, but are searching for the answer. Because a lot of what you do is going to make a difference in a lot of people's lives that you'll never meet, never know. And yet here you are. Bob said to me, Mitchell, I'd like you to come and do something this evening. I'd like you to come and remind people that it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. Because not unlike a whole bunch of other people, this organization has members who have stuff that happens. And sometimes this stuff is unexpected, unwanted, unwelcome. And yet, I don't know whether you've ever noticed, but I've observed in my own life, sometimes when a lot of that stuff is happening and you really don't want it to happen, it happens faster. Anybody ever know? And then when you tell it to stop, that's when it really starts to happen faster. And so in life, it's not often easy to control the stuff. So I've chosen in my life to focus on what you do with the stuff once it happens. How you choose to think about it, how you choose to react to it. And that's what I've come to spend a few minutes with you this evening, because you and I are both really anxious to get up to the mariachis. And I hope there's margaritas. There better be margaritas. I had that wonderful job, the job that you saw in the video. I was a gripman on the San Francisco cable cars. Now, wow, what a wonderful opportunity that was. And you, a very well-traveled group, most of you, I'm sure many of you, have ridden on a San Francisco cable car, but some of you are from overseas or from different places, some as far as 40 minutes away, and you've come here to the meeting. Is there anybody here, now foreign visitors, this may not work exactly for you, but is there anybody here who's never seen a Rice-A-Roni commercial? Yeah, and for the foreign visitors, I'm sorry, it's a commercial about a food product, and they use a cable car, and a guy rings the bell. And so that was my job, ringing the bell, and I pretty much did what you do. Now I'm getting some funny looks. Now people are saying, wait a second, Mitchell, you had us for a few minutes there, but now we're starting to wonder, you don't look smart enough to do what we do, Mitchell. Yeah, this is probably the only audience I've ever spoken to where everybody in the room is smarter than me. It's a little embarrassing, but that's okay. That's okay. We're all smart in different ways. That's okay. But you see, my job was what your job is. My job was to be of service to other people, to help other people. Now you're helping animals, you're using animals in research, and I was fascinated. Why did the name go away? Well, sorry, my friend who I talked to out in the hallway. Oh, okay, it'll come to me. You know who you are, and you told me something really wonderful about this organization. I was looking and I was asking you questions and I was talking to you and asking all of you lots of, tell me about it and what's important about it and why is it necessary. And he told me the name of this organization when it was founded in 1963. And he told me it was the Animal Care Panel. said it all. Said it all about what you're about, who you are, what you truly care about. And I love that understanding that I got from that very description. But you see, if we choose as a motivator, maybe some of you know his name, Zig Ziglar, a famous American motivator, and Zig said something that's timeless, priceless. He said, you can have anything you want in life if you just help other people get what they want first. To be of service to other people. To help other people. I think that's what we're all about. And if that's our focus, then I think the rest follows rather easily. So I loved my job on the cable cars, and with a buddy of mine, we'd served in the Marine Corps together, we took some time off, he from law school, me from my cable car job and going to school at San Francisco State University. We took some time off and we took a motorcycle trip. And we decided we drove across the Sierra Nevadas and then down through the desert. And this was late June. I'm not completely sure we were as smart as we thought we were. Needles, California, late June. Ooh, hot. Up into the Grand Canyon, finally up into Four Corners and Colorado. And I fell in love with Colorado. And I spent time up there with my buddy. We raced our motorcycles, met other people, came back the following fall, bought season passes for Aspen Skiing Corporation, and lived in a funky trailer, and I hung sheetrock, but I skied almost every day, and just loved it. And then I began to think about a dream that I had to fly an airplane. I wanted to become a pilot. Anybody here with any unfulfilled dreams? Well, I pursued mine and started my flying lessons up in Colorado, and then in the spring, back in San Francisco, back at my job at the cable cars, San Francisco State, and one afternoon I went out and bought a brand new motorcycle. The biggest, most powerful motorcycle that money could buy. Very next morning, on the bike across the Oakland-San Francisco Bay Bridge, I met a friend from here a little while ago, to Hayward, where I got in an airplane, and for the first time in my life, I soloed. Flew the plane by myself, nobody else in it, nobody there to tell me what to do, nobody there in case I made a mistake. Anybody in this room remember their first solo? Now, because of the lights, I can't really see hands, but it would be impossible for a group this big not to have a pilot or two or three in the room, and we have a special bond. But how about the rest of you? What solo are you remembering right now? Oh, when I talk to little kids, I get a hand almost immediately. There's, Mr. Mitchell, I remember the first time I danced in front of my class. And I remember when I rode a bike for the first time. A lot of us in this room, Bob, are a little too old to remember when we rode a bike for the first time, but how about when we drove a car for the first time? I went in a little session a little while ago, and there were a bunch of guys with DVM after their name. When you, women and men, received that degree, what did that feel like? It's interesting. I was thinking about this earlier. I had a wonderful pediatrician when I was a child, just a terrific guy. I don't remember his name. But I remember Dr. Menghetti's name. He was our vet. How about the rest of you, you technicians? I watched you come up here and receive your awards and be recognized for your achievements when you receive those certifications. You guys have a lot of letters after your name, I want to tell you. What did that feel like? When you became the master of your fate. captain of your destiny. Don't forget those moments. Don't forget how proud you were. Don't forget when somebody gives you a hard time about what you do. How many people today on this planet are better because somebody did experiments 1,000 years ago? That afternoon, driving my brand new motorcycle to my job on the cable cars at the intersection in San Francisco, 26th and South Van Ness, for those who are from the Bay Area, I must have been thinking about the airplane ride. What a moment in somebody's life. I had to be thinking about skiing, Colorado, Ruthie's Run, Ajax Mountain. Wow. Everything but the laundry truck that ran through the stop sign, smashed into the bike, knocked it to the ground. But even then, the fractured elbow and the cracked pelvis, those aren't injuries that are going to end somebody's life. But in that split second, a split second that changed my life forever, the gas cap popped open. And out poured 2.5 gallons of gasoline all over me, and the heat of the engine ignited it. I became a human bonfire. Told by witnesses at the scene that day, later they told me, frozen in fear, horrified, terrified. But one person, a car salesman working in a dealership on the corner that day, tore a fire extinguisher from a wall and rushed out into this, didn't wait for permission, didn't go find the instruction book. I bet he didn't even stop to check the daily paper, to check his horoscope, to make sure it was an advantageous time to do something like that. The power of one. The power of one taking action now made all the difference that day. And I see the power of one multiplied in this convention hall today. And I think about you. Now, this is not one of the greatest hardships in your life to come to San Diego for this kind of weather and this great meeting, but you're not at the beach right now, I've noticed. You're not at a bar somewhere. You're not shopping. Woody Allen says 80% of success is showing up. I like this job of mine because I get to talk to the people who show up. I get to talk to the people who choose to take action now. Marshall McLuhan, the Canadian professor, University of Toronto, said, "There are no passengers on Spaceship Earth. We are all crew." When Betty and Ann talked to me on the phone at that conference call a few weeks ago, they said, "Mitchell, you're going to get to talk to the people who are not just along for the ride. You're going to get to talk to the people who have their oar in the water." Thanks to that car salesman taking action now, I was still alive when the paramedics arrived. They rushed me to nearby San Francisco hospital where a team was waiting for me. Doctors, nurses, technicians, all in the emergency room, as you would imagine. And the rest of the team was there too. Volunteers, janitors, food service workers, administrators, but all the people that made it possible for the nurses to remove the clothes burned to my body, that made it possible for that physician to perform the tracheostomy so that I could continue to breathe. And were it not for the entire team that day at San Francisco General Hospital, my life would have been extinguished. Two weeks went by before I started to come to, before I started to wake up, before I'd started to realize what had happened to me. And by then the doctors and nurses had decided, maybe I might live after all. But I had to ask myself the question, live for what? Fingers gone, face gone, 65% of my body horribly burned. What future could there be for somebody like me? The procedures never stopped, round the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, always somebody coming in the room. Whirlpool therapy, debriding, respiratory care, 15 surgeries, 10, 12 blood transfusions. It never, ever stopped. 2 a.m., 2 p.m., it didn't matter. And on top of everything else, San Francisco General Hospital was a teaching hospital. The interns loved me. I was their guinea pig. They had never seen a mess as big as me. They were fascinated. Finally got to a place I couldn't take it anymore. I was never getting enough sleep. Literally not more than 30 minutes between visits from somebody to do something for me. And I finally got to a place I couldn't take it anymore. I literally couldn't take it. And I remember one day, one of my angel-like nurses, I had 2 nurses in particular, June Fulbright and Nulan Shaw, who were just remarkable, amazing. And I remember June came in one afternoon and, Mitchell, what's wrong? What's going on? I said, I'm okay. And she said, no, you're not. What's going on? Finally, she called the chief of staff. He came by my room a little bit later and stuck his head in the door. Mitchell, what do you need? What can we do for you? I guess I had one last happy face left, because I remember looking up at him, and instead of telling him what I was really feeling, I said, Doctor, do you think I could just have a day off? Just to break. Does anybody in this room ever feel that way? Chris is now giving me a dirty look. Chris is now upset with me. Chris said, you were doing great right up until that moment, Mitchell. Chris said, I talked to you, Mitchell. I told you about this group. This group, you generally work, what, about 10 to 3 every day? Is that what you told me, Chris? Something like that. 10 to 3, about 4 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week. Your golf games are superb, and I better get my notes out again, Chris. I think I might have missed 3 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm sorry, I got that. I apologize. I'm always fascinated to watch people. I was listening to some of the people who received awards saying this person couldn't be there because they need to be back continuing the work that we're doing together. This person couldn't be there because they have responsibilities and obligations they're taking care of right now. It's, again, fascinating to see people who've chosen in life not to take the easy way. That great expression that you hear people saying, take it easy, take it easy. Is there anybody sitting in this room today because they took it easy? Easy doesn't do it. Easy doesn't get you what you want to do. The doctor did something amazing. He pulled up a chair, sat down by my bed, asked for my charts. He looked at me and he said, Mitchell, we're not going to kill you trying to save you. Only you know how much you can tolerate. We can't even imagine what you're going through. But as of right now, something in your care is going to change. As of right now, I'm putting you in charge of you. Nothing from now on is going to happen in this hospital that you don't want to have happen. You're going to call the shots. If you don't want something to happen, we won't do it. And what I want to do is go through everything in your 24-hour routine. You tell me what you want changed, You tell me what you want stopped. I'll write the orders right now. There'll be no argument, no disagreement from me. And we went through all the procedures, and at the end of the doctor's visit, we found a couple things that we could do every 4 hours instead of every 3. We even found a couple things we could discontinue, stop completely, probably weren't necessary anymore. They were only being done once a day. So at the end of the doctor's visit, very little in my routine had changed, but my whole life had changed. You see, in that moment, for the first time in my life, I realized it was my choice. It was up to me. For the first time in W.Mitchell's life, Mitchell took responsibility for Mitchell. And I use that word advisedly. The word we hear it all our lifetime. You're responsible for the mess in your room. You're responsible for your homework not being done. You're responsible for the paper not being fulfilled. Or you didn't pick me up on time, and now we're all going to be late. It's all your fault. And we put fault and blame and guilt so often with that word responsibility that I think we don't realize another, and I think better definition of it. Stephen Covey used it in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talked about response-able, the ability to respond. That's the definition I like best. We can spend a lot of time in life. You've probably heard this analogy. I don't know who I stole it from, but it's such a good one. I use it, and whoever it is, take credit for it. I don't know, but it's a good one. Do you notice this? I notice it. I drive through life sometime, spending a lot of time in the rearview mirror. Oh, we should turn left back there. Oh, how come I started so late today? Oh, I didn't get gas yesterday. Now I'm going to have to stop. I'm even going to be late. Why did I even start the trip at all? Anybody else do that, or is that just me? You see, I would like to change yesterday. I have a bunch of stuff, a bunch of words that I've said, a bunch of things that I've done or didn't do that I would love to go back and change. I'd change my investment strategy. A lot of stocks I wouldn't have bought, let me tell you. Right now, taking the money out of the market a while ago. And we all would change yesterday, but I can't. I don't think you can. And every moment I spend on that rearview mirror, every moment I spend navigating this way, instead of realizing that there's a reason that the car manufacturers made the windshield so much bigger than the rearview mirror. And it's, if anybody's getting the impression that Mitchell came here to sprinkle fairy dust on you and everybody's going to waltz out of here without a challenge and an issue and everything's going to be fine, you didn't pay me enough to do that. I mean, I'm going to, come on. Maybe a couple margaritas, maybe, but I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying we have to catch ourselves and say, that's not serving me well. Rather than focusing on what's past, I think I'm going to focus on what's next. And instead of dwelling on, why did that person do that, and how come that's not fair, and how come they didn't arrange this, and how come, what do you want to do about it? Because I think in that moment, for the first time in my life, I started to sow the seeds of the message that I came to share in the book that I've written. It's not what happens to you. Life has lots of stuff that happens. It's what you do about what happens to you. There are potholes. Life has potholes. You ever notice that? Life has bridges out. Life has tornadoes and hurricanes, and they're not fair. It's not good, but it is. Somebody said, the most successful person is the one who can enjoy the scenery on a detour. Anybody here been on any detours lately? Anybody have a detour and an experience on that detour that they would not trade for the world? Everybody. The more time I spend on what I have no control over, the less time I have to spend on what I have control over. It's that simple, it's that basic. I don't think anybody in this room is going, wow, that guy's really smart. He figured that one out. But it's how we choose to point ourselves, to direct ourselves, to refocus ourselves, realign ourselves. That's the power that we have. And when we say, I don't like it, I don't like what happened, I don't like where I am, I don't like this situation, but I'm not going to sit here waiting for somebody to come and rescue me. I'm going to choose what's next. And if what's next doesn't get me what I want, I'm going to ask myself a question. What's next? And I'm going to ask that question, which is what you do. This is your job, isn't this your... Now I'm not sure you're getting right on the edge here of trying to be as smart as us again. It's not going to happen. But isn't that what you do? Isn't that your whole thing? Do I understand research? And you do something and you get a result and it doesn't get you what you want, you do something else. And you get a result and it doesn't do you. Am I there, sort of? I see somebody nodding good. You're on my side. I like that man right there. He's good. The rest of you, I don't care what you think. I like that guy. What's next? It works in what you do. How about in our personal lives as well? It was about, I'm checking my watch because it's going to be margarita time very, very soon. In fact, I think it's going to be margarita time real soon. Well, I got out of that hospital after about 4 months and got home. I could do nothing for myself. My newly grafted hands so sensitive, even the breeze blowing on them bothered me. So I had to be dressed and fed and bathed. But as time went on and my hands became less sensitive, and I was once again able to dress myself and feed myself, drive a car by myself, fly an airplane again by myself. Along those streets of San Francisco, I learned one of the most valuable lessons, the most important tools, the most basic kinds of keys to unlock some of the doors that are holding us back in life. And this one is one, if you haven't heard this one before, you've been living in a cave. But if you haven't heard it in the last 15 or 20 minutes, you haven't heard it soon enough, recently enough. What I learned was what you focus on in life is what you get back. What you concentrate on is who you become. Now again, I don't see anybody in here going, boy, that guy's a genius. Where does he come up with this stuff? Mark Twain said, we can't remember everything we know, we're not smart enough. We need to be reminded. We all need to be reminded, because when I focused on how terrible I looked and how helpless I was and how scary I was to kids, isn't that what came back to me? But you know, when I started to think about the gift that lived inside me, when I started to think about the fact that I could fly an airplane, that I had relationships that were worthy and good and healthy, my life changed. And other people's did too. 2 years after the accident, I took some of the insurance money I'd received and moved to Colorado, to Crested Butte, that beautiful little town you heard about that President Clinton mentioned. And I loved Crested Butte, and I started some businesses, and with a buddy of mine, two buddies, we co-founded Vermont Castings, the wood stove company. So life was pretty, some people say, fire, Mitchell, fire. Didn't you learn anything? Keep it inside the stove. That's a good thing to learn about fire. And so we started Vermont Castings, and 4.5 years after that fiery crash, with my commercial, my multi-engine, my instrument rating, a beautiful 6-seater Cessna aircraft, one cold, beautiful November morning, I agreed to take 4 others in a ride in my plane and went down to the airport, did the pre-flight inspection, took off, lifted into the air, and immediately something was wrong. The plane wasn't flying as it should. I pulled the power. The plane stalled. Now, for the non-pilots in the room, it doesn't mean that the engine stops running. It literally means that the wings stopped flying and the plane crashed back onto the runway. All I could think about was an explosion. I yelled at my passengers, "Get out!" Forced the doors open, "Get out!" And they wedged the door open. They crawled away. And I couldn't move my legs. I tried. Then I felt the pain in my back. They put me on a flight for life aircraft to Denver. They performed an operation, a laminectomy. They found no visible damage to my spinal cord, and 3 days later, the neurosurgeon said, "Mitchell, you're paralyzed. You're not going to walk again, Mitchell." Why me? What had I done? Why me? A few days later, somebody from the FAA came to talk to me, to interview me, and to show me the preliminary accident report. It turns out I hadn't done that pre-flight inspection as carefully as I'd been trained. There was still ice on the wings. But I didn't do it on purpose. Why me? A few weeks later, a young girl from my little town of Crested Butte called me on the phone one day. She said, "Mitchell, I know you're going through some really tough times. My family's been to see you and friends have talked to you on the phone. Mitchell, do you remember a year ago when I was having some real difficulties in my life, you told me that it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. Do you still believe that, Mitchell? Don't you hate it when people do that to you?" That advice was for her. That was good advice for her. Leave me alone. I'm enjoying being miserable. The next morning, I asked the orderlies when they came in my room to lift me out of my bed, put me in this new wheelchair. I hated it. Awkward, uncomfortable, almost impossible to get to the place that was so easy just a few short weeks before, and now the thing I wanted was too high, or there were steps in my way. But every day I went back out in the gymnasium, and every day Beverly was waiting for me. She was my physical therapist. Pretty sure, never verified it, pretty sure that Beverly had once been a Marine Corps drill instructor. Pretty sure. Meanest, toughest woman that I've ever loved. Beverly wanted me to learn. She had impossible things for me to do, unending impossible things, which somehow always became possible. But she wanted me to learn how to transfer from the wheelchair to the couch in the gymnasium, and that is stupid. And I wasn't going to do it, and she couldn't make me. Finally one day, because you have to learn how to transfer onto beds, into car seats, bathtubs. I find women stand a lot closer to me now that I learned the bathtub one. That's a good one. But a couch is stupid. And here's why. You'll be on my side when I tell you this. First of all, I already had a place to sit. A perfectly good, I didn't need another place. Secondly, the wheelchair couch transfer is toughest one you can do. Toughest one you can, because you can fall onto the couch. It's always lower than the wheelchair. It's getting back off the couch. Because when you push against the cushion, it gives way and you can't look. I wasn't going to do it, and she couldn't make me. Finally, one day after 5 especially impossible things had become possible, she came over to me, put her arm around my shoulder. "Mitchell, there's one more thing. I'm not going to do it, Beverly. It's stupid and you can't." Mitchell, calm yourself. Relax, Mitchell. Mitchell, have you ever considered the fact there's 2 ways you're going to get close to your future mate? One is going to be next to her in bed. One is going to be sitting next to her on the couch. The couch is probably going to come first. 5 minutes. 5 minutes on the couch, off the couch, on the couch. That's a great way to close, and it's about that time. I think I hear the mariachis warming up. But that's not good enough. It's not good enough for me, and I don't think it's good enough for you. Because you see, if all of us leave this convention center the same way we came in this convention center, then why were you invited, Mitchell? to entertain, to inspire. You see, the question I have for you is, what transfer are you putting off? What transfer are you avoiding? Mitchell, wait a second. Mitchell, this is really fun. I've been up until now. This is less fun right at this moment. You see, I know it's not easy. If it was easy, you would have done it. I know it's going to require something which is going to be a big stretch. That's what the big transfers are. But if we're going to wait, have you ever heard somebody say 30 more years and then I'll be retired and I can pursue my dream? 30 years? Why would you wait 30 minutes? I didn't say anything was easy. My life's been a gift. I've had so many great things happen in my life, so many wonderful moments, so many great things, and I've had a couple of bumps along the way. And they were pretty big bumps at the time, but they're not big bumps now because I don't carry that around with me, that steamer trunk of baggage with me all the time. And if not you, who? And if not here, where? And if not now, when are you going to begin that transfer? I was getting ready to get out of Craig Hospital and go home to Crested Butte, and I watched this one young guy. He had broken his neck. He'd never climb a mountain again. That's what he was doing when he broke his neck. He'd never race his bike again. He'd never ski again. His life was over. Everything important had been taken away. And I went over to him one afternoon, and I said what President Clinton had remembered from the first time he heard me speak. Before I was paralyzed, there were 10,000 things I could do. Now, there are 9,000. Dwell on the 1,000. Concentrate on the 9,000. That's called a choice. And if at the end of your lifetime you can do even a few hundred of those things, you'll be one of the most remarkable people on the planet. You see, it's not what happens to you. Life is full of stuff that happens to you. And you, especially the kind of people who show up, have resources and resiliency and abilities you haven't even dreamt of. Normally I begin, and I brought my book along, and I'll see all you guys over at the reception, and there's a table there. Come by and say hi. That would be the highlight of my evening. If you want a copy of the book, I'll sign it for you and take it home. Maybe you have somebody at home that needs to hear this message. I usually begin the talk by asking people, has anybody here ever been in prison? Tonight, I thought it was more, and because I have, because this wheelchair was once a prison for me, tonight I thought it was more appropriate for you seed planters, for you people who have orchards and orchards and orchards of apples you will never, ever see, that you've created by the seeds that you're planting, by doing the work that you're doing. But if you find yourself back in one of those prisons, and a lot of us work pretty hard in building some of those cells by ourselves, and you find yourself shaking the bars and yelling at the top of your lungs, let me out of here, how did I get in here? I hope maybe you'll stop. And I hope maybe you'll let go. And I hope maybe you'll step back. And I hope you'll calm yourself. And if you reach down deep into your pocket or your purse and pull out your keys, you're going to find a little surprise. You're going to find a new key that you picked up at a convention in San Diego because you chose to show up. And take a long look at that new key, and you'll see written on it, it's not what happens to you. It's what you do about it. This has been a great pleasure. Let's go look for the margaritas.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mitchell. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. President.
Wonderful. Everyone, our meeting is adjourned. Please join Mitchell and me and Mariachi Orgullo de San Diego and Project Wildlife back at the Marriott in the ballroom on the 3rd floor. Thank you very much.